You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
How the Anti-American Right Hijacked the GOP, Conservative, based on an article by Alex Henderson. The right did not lose its mind. It found its appetite. The source is the clue. David French's column, as described here, treats the Republican Party's MAGA turn as an abandonment of classical liberalism. He points to Elon Musk, J.D. Vance, Stephen Miller, Donald Trump, and Peter Thiel as evidence that the right is openly hostile to democratic rule and the constitutional language it used to borrow for cover. That is the useful part of the piece. The weakness is in the framing. This is not some tragic misunderstanding inside conservatism. It is the visible alignment of money, state power, and anti-democratic ideology. Who actually holds power? The people shaping the outcome are not the academics, pundits, or nostalgic ex-conservatives wringing their hands about lost principles. The actors with leverage are the ones named in the source: Musk, Thiel, Trump, Vance, and Miller. Musk and Thiel matter here because billionaire influence is not commentary. It is political force. Trump matters because he normalizes the contempt. Vance and Miller matter because they translate the contempt into governing language. This is what power looks like when it stops pretending to be ashamed. This is not a betrayal. It is a program. French presents the right's turn against classical liberalism as a rupture from an older, nobler conservatism. That story flatters the old right and misdescribes the new one. What the source actually shows is a movement increasingly comfortable saying that democracy itself is a problem. Thiel's claim that freedom and democracy are incompatible is not a philosophical slip. Musk's public eye have wised up is not a joke. Devin Erickson's universal suffrage leads to universal suffering is not random internet filth. These are signals. They are testing how bluntly the right can say what it wants, rule without equal consent. Misdirection as strategy. French wants to draw a line between classical liberalism and the MAGA right, as if the former were the respectable American inheritance and the latter corruption. That distinction is too neat. It turns an authoritarian faction into a theological heresy instead of what it is, a power block shedding democratic disguise. The misdirection matters because it shifts the argument from material control to abstract ideals. Once the debate becomes about whether the right still respects the creed, the real question gets buried: who gets to govern, on what terms, and in whose interests? The source shows a right increasingly willing to answer that question with exclusion, hierarchy, and contempt for universal political equality. The useful illusion of patriotism. French quotes a version of patriotism that loves the country, but scorns its creed. That is not a contradiction for the post-liberal right. It is the point. The creed is the obstacle. Universal suffrage, equal citizenship, constitutional limits, and democratic legitimacy are all irritants to people who want a nation defined by ancestry, loyalty, and submission. That is why the language of patriotic restoration is so often paired with democratic sabotage. It lets the powerful claim they are saving the country while they hollow out the systems that make the country governable by its people. The pattern. The broader pattern is straightforward. Oligarchic politics always prefers hierarchy dressed up as principle. When the old language of liberal constitutionalism becomes inconvenient, the right discards it and reaches for something older, meaner, and more honest about its intentions. That is the real significance of the source story. The right is not drifting away from democracy by accident. Its most influential figures are increasingly deciding that democracy is a limitation they no longer want to honor. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Alternet for today's article. With the automated voice of Labritz R. Thanks for listening.